Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF Hayomi Maseches Bava Kamma, DAF Chaf Aleph. So right on top, on the first line, Shalach le Rabbi Abba bar Zavda. He had a question and he sent it to Lemori bar Mar. This is pertaining to yesterday's discussion. Zenen, a fellow has benefit. For instance, from he moved into a vacant apartment belonging to his friend. So he's certainly saving. He's saving on rent. He has practical financial gain. But the landlord wasn't, intending on renting this property out. It was going to stay vacant regardless. So he's not really having financial loss. So we have a zen. Reuven is enjoying himself, saving rent, but Shimon, the landlord, is not really losing out. Question: does he have to pay rent or not? So this question was sent by Rabbi Abba bar Zavda to Mori bar Mar. Please ask Rav Huna this question. Reuven moves into Shimon's property without his knowledge. Need he pay rent or not? As by the time the question was ready to be presented to Rav Huna, Rav Huna passes away. Marley Rabba. So the son, Rabba the son, Bar Rav Huna, responded in his name. Hachi Amar Abba Mari. My father, the master, he actually already stated his opinion about this matter. Mishmei the Rav, in the name of Rav. Pay or no pay? No need to pay. That's number one. Second halacha, which our father told us, was, let's say somebody rents a house from Reuven. He must pay Shimon rent. Asks the Gemara, Shimon, my avinte, what's he doing in the picture? How does Shimon get involved? Hachi Kamar, he means like this. He rented from Reuven, but it turns out that Reuven was renting out Shimon's property. Nimtza Bayis Shimon. In this case, Ma'alei Sachar. So the dweller needs to pay, Shimon rent. And the question is, how does this fit with the first halacha? Zenen v'zelei chaser is pater, and here we're saying pay rent to the owner, to Shimon. Tarti, you're saying two halachas which seem to contradict each other. Answer: it depends on the circumstance. Depends if it was a rental property or not. If the property was meant to be rented, so the landlord is entitled to collect rent, because here we have zenen v'zeh chaser, right? As opposed to the first case, where no rent is required, that's because the property was not meant to be rented to begin with. He wasn't intending on renting it out, so it's zenen v'zeh chaser. So the kasha was, how do these two halachas work with each other? First you say, you can live there rent-free. Of course, by the way, we're speaking after the fact. The chatchila, you're not meant to, enter somebody else's property without permission. We're speaking after the fact. Choshe mishpat, can he demand rent? The answer is no. You cause them no loss. And then you say, well, if I rented from Reuven, but it was really Shimon's, in which case it's a classic zenen, v'zelei chaser, and it's shaloi midata, because Shimon had no idea I was renting the property. I have to pay rent. How? Why? The answer is, we're speaking where it was meant for rental, and therefore the landlord is actually experiencing financial loss unless he gets paid. Itmar Namu, we have likewise a halacha, the name of Amar Abchir bar Amen, Amar Av, V'amr Lasamse Amar Abchir bar Aben, Amar Rav Huna, Hadar b'chatzash chaver shlei medaitoi, right? Eino itzarich la'alas sachar, no need to pay rent. Number two, it's almost a repetition of the previous Gemara. V'asoicher bais mibnei ha'ir, if one rents a home from the townspeople, ma'ala sachar le'balim, he must pay rent to the owner. Balim mavidetayu, what do you mean? Why is he paying other people if he rented from these people? Hachikamar means like this. If they rented the other person's property, like before, nimtzuloi bailim, so you rented it from one fellow, it turns out that he was renting the other person's house, ma'alan sachar, you have to go find the owner and pay him rent. But again, it's inconsistent, because here we're saying rent is payable to the owner meaning you have to pay rent, and a minute ago you told me when it's zenen vezelichasa, no rent is required, tarti, two contradictory halachas. Had l'kaim igro, depends if it's meant for rental. Had l'kaim igro, it's not intended as a rental property. Amar av schera, Amar av chuna, Amar av. The same halacha once again. Hador b'chatz chaver shlem daitoi. Ein tzorech lalach l'socher, no rent is needed. And here he adds another twist, because actually you're benefiting the landlord. You're keeping it occupied and looked after. Mishum shenemar b'shi'iyah. Shi'iyah is a shade, a demon. Yukas shar, the entranceway, the dwelling, basically the house starts crumbling because of the presence of shadim when no humans are present. So your dwelling, you're living in there, actually preserves the house. He owes you instead of owing him. Amar mar baravashi. You speak about this shade. Actually, I once saw it. I once saw the shade of an ageach kitura. He hammers away like a ox goring, very destructive. Rav Yosef Amar. I'll give you another reason why no rent is required. Based on misveh Yosef. When you sit in the house, you look after it, you maintain it, and don't let it just crumble of neglect. Very practical consideration. So basically, you're helping the owner by living there and looking after it and repairing what needs to be repaired. Asks the more. Okay, we have two reasons. One is more spiritual, one more practical. My bunai. Any difference between the two reasons? Meaning a situation which has one and not the other? Yeah. The difference would be like this. The suppose the landlord, the actual owner, used it as a storage depot, firewood, hay. So in terms of presence, human presence, which preempts the presence of shadim, you have it already. I have nothing from you coming in there. It's already occupied and no issue of shadim. But in terms of maintenance, says Rashi, big difference between using it as a storage depot where you dump stuff and you don't necessarily pay attention to all the nitty gritty of the maintenance requirement, as opposed to a person actually living in there, looking after the pipes and the plumbing and etc. etc. So the second reason would still apply. There was a story about this fellow, Hau Gavra. The Bona Apadno, he built his mansion, Akil Kalta the Yasmi, on this garbage dump of the Yisraimim's property. Agbe Rav Nachman Apadmine, Rav Nachman took away his palace, his mansion, as payment for the rental payment for the Yisraimim. Asks the Gemara, why is he paying at all? Lema Kasavar Rav Nachman. Does Rav Nachman really hold rent is in place? Hadar b'chatz chaver shlem daitoi, you have to pay. Tzarech lalas l'socher. Answers the Gemara. The reason why you don't is because zenene v'zeloi chaser. Landlord is not missing anything, right? But here, in this case, meikara, initially, there were renters there. So taking this property free of charge is actually causing them financial loss. Karmunoi, these old timers, havudai bay, they would sit in this property of the Yisraelim and they paid rent. They paid some sort of token amount to the Yisraelim. By overtaking them, you're now causing the Yisraelim a loss. That's why you have to pay. And the story doesn't end there. Amar lahu, so Rav Nachman had told this fellow, Amar lezil paisinu, he asked me, go, pay them something. Well, he didn't pay attention. Therefore, reluctantly Rav Nachman proceeded with this drastic measure. Agbe Rav Nachman took away the apadne, he repossessed his home in it. Okay, so bottom line is, we seem to hold that zenen of zele chaser is potter. And we have exceptions to the rule where actually it's zeh chaser, the place is meant for rental, or the Yisraelim's case when they were getting something for it. In that case, the equation changes. Now, the Mishnah we learned that an animal who consumes somebody else's produce, it depends where. If it happens in the Chatzar HaNizak, in the Nizak's territory, in the victim's place, then he has to pay full payment. But if it happens in the street, Shein b'shis rabim is potter. The pasuk says, "Ubier b'stei acher," in his place, not in the public area. So if it happens in a public area, you don't pay actual damages. Rather, you just pay, what you benefit. Mashanenis, ketzim shalmes mashanenis. And the Mishnah explains, well, it depends if the animal consumed produce sitting in the actual square, in the public area, in the market. In the Rechava, you pay only what you benefited rather than actual loss. But Mitzidei Rechava, if it's off to the side, which is not a place that's frequented by the crowds, then it's no longer regarded as Rosh Hashanah. With respect to this halacha, you pay actual damages. Likewise, Pesach HaChanus, you pay Mashanenes, Mitech HaChanus, you pay Mashi Yizika. Amar Rav, what happens Ube Machzeres? So the animal is actually positioned in the street, in the Rosh Hashanah, no question about that. But then he turns his head to the Tzidei HaRechava, to the side of the square. And that's where he consumes the food. So his body's still here, but his head is over there, in a place which is regarded like Rishus HaNizak. Says Rav, in this case, you pay 100%. It's considered as though the crime took place in the Rishus HaNizak, and you pay fully. Ushmul Amar, no way. Afilu Machzeres Nami Pater. Even in this case, you're Pater because the actual animal is in the street. And that determines its location. Asks the Gemara Shmuel. So according to Shmuel, who says even if the animal turns his head to the side, it's still regarded as though it took place in the street. So when do we have a case where you pay fully? Very pashut. The animal left the actual square, went off to the side, so the entire animal went to the tzidei rechav, and there he ate. That's considered nezek shalom. There was another version of this same discussion between Rav and Shmuel regarding the status of machzeres. What happens by machzeres? An animal standing here, but turning his head into the corner of the street, which is regarded as sort of a private area. Rava machayeves, pay fully, because he's consuming over there. Shmuel Amar, no, you pater because his body's over here. Ulu Shmuel meshalemes mashi zika, heichem mishkachas la, de machayva. So when the Mishnah says that if the animal ate mitzidei rechav, you pay mashi zika, you pay full damages, how's that? When is that? The animal left the main area and went off to the side. So the entire animal is there. It's considered chatzar hanizak. The Mishnah gives another example of what's considered public area, what's considered private. In Pesach HaChanus, the animal consumed produce being displayed at the in front of the store. There you're not chayav fully, only what you benefited. It's considered just a rab. Now, how exactly did this take place? How was the animal positioned? Pshita machzeres. Obviously, the animal was turning to the side because nobody puts this produce right in the middle of the street. And what does the Mishnah say? You're pater. You only pay what you benefited, not actual damages. Mashanenis in, that's what you pay. Mashizika, not what you actually damaged. So is that a kasha on? It's a kasha on Rav, who says machzeres is considered Rosh Hashanah. Who moisivla? Who mefarakla? The same Chacham or Nachmar Yitzchak who asked this question, the same Amayra responded, the Kamei B'Keren Zavis. This can work even according to Rav. That the animal was actually walking right in the middle of the street. So how did he end up on top of the merchant's display? The answer is like this. There was a large area, a large walkway, which was leading into a smaller, sort of, constricting itself and sort of, like a 3-lane highway, which is veered into one lane, right? So everybody's got to squeeze that. So he went from a large area into a small alleyway. And as he's entering this, at the entrance to the small alleyway, there was a store with a display, which sort of was right in this animal's path, coming from the large area. So he didn't have to turn anywhere. Right? So in this case, he can be consuming stuff displayed in front of a storefront, but did not require any sort of tilting or shifting. And in this case, certainly it's considered Shisarabim. You only pay Masha Nenis rather than Masha Yizika. There's another version of this whole machlekes. Machzeres, all agree. If the animal turns his head off to the side and eats over there, that's not called Achila B'Shisarabim Yuchayev fully. Even Shmuel agrees. Machlekes only applies to a certain very specific case. A totally different situation. So, this fellow actually owned, his store his property extended until, the actual street. And he sort of pulled back a little bit. He pulled his store back so that he could put his, his display over there. So basically, he's rendering that, space hefker. He's sort of incorporating into the street, allowing people to walk there. But he's still, retaining some rights. He's putting his paris there. And that's where this episode took place. That's the case, which is subject to Machlekes Rav Shmuel. But Mekatze Mokem, a fellow who designated some of his own territory, he pulled back and allowed that place to be part of the street. And that's where he put his fruit, and that's what the animal ate. And that's the Machlekes here, between Rav and Shmuel. We learned like this. Omar Rav lo yishono machzeres. When do you pay fully? When you turn your head into this, into a person's territory, into the, the side of the street, the tzidei ruchava, and that's what you eat. So that's called like a chatzar nizik. But in our case, now we'll go back to our case where he pulled back. Aval mekatza mokim meshusah, just a person who gave away some of his territory and made it part of the public domain, and that's where he put his stuff. And the animal walked over and ate it, Torah, you're potter. Because that's considered like a Rosh Hashanah. Even in this case, it is considered as though the animal entered private territory, and you pay fully. What is this machlekes dependent on? What's it telling you? So perhaps, perhaps the machlekes revolves around a general question. Typically, when a person is responsible for a bur, for digging a pit, creating an obstacle, presenting a hazard in the street, we're speaking that it's totally hefker. He took his tractor, took his shovel, he dug a pit in the middle of the street. What happened if he did it in his own place? And then he allowed people to walk into his territory, he made it hefker, with the bur in place. Are you chayiv or not? That's a discussion later on, etc. So perhaps this shaila triggers the machlekes in our sugi as well. How's that? Lema, perhaps we'll say, machlekes between Rav and Shmuel in our case is connected, is related to that general question of a bur in a person's property which he now opened for public access. But the bur was still there. Rav Amar Pot, Rav who says that in our situation, which is a similar case, that a fellow sort of put his fruit down in his own place, and then he was mafkir. He sort of opened the doors, allowed people to access that area. So he made the rishus hefker, but the bur is still there. Rav says the animal eats it as potter. Why? Because he holds he shouldn't have done this. This fellow was totally reckless. Bur b'rishus chayev. Even a bur in your rishus, you're chayev for it. So you created a hazard. You created an obstacle. And Rashi brings the Gemara later. Doors open. Anybody can come take it. To remove that hazard. So basically, there's no liability for eating this type of fruit, which is really a hazardous situation. Ushmuel damar chayev, but Shmuel says the animal's chayev because he holds. No, bur b'shusay potter. Even though it's really like a bur, it's an obstacle. But since it's technically your place, you're allowing them to access it. It's sort of now publicly owned. You gave it away to the community at large, but technically speaking, it is off to the side. And Rashi explains it's not sort of the main street yet. It's still technically off to the side, and therefore you're potter. Therefore you're potter for leaving the fruit there, and likewise the animal came and eat it is chayev, fully liable. So according to Rav, we treat it like a bur. Anybody eats it as potter. According to Shmuel, we don't, and therefore if you eat it, you're chayev. Is that so? Is the machlekes Rav and Shmuel in our case depend on that machlekes? Do we classify it as a dangerous bur or not? Amalach Rav will say lo'elam emlacha ba'alma bur b'shusay potter. No, perhaps I'll agree that a bur in this situation doesn't carry liabilities. Because the Torah is only mechayev a person for digging a pit in the street. So the question is, why would we say that the animal owner is potter for his animals consuming this fruit? Here it's different. The Amr Lav kol kaminach, because the animal owner could claim to the store owner. He says, "Look, what business do you have putting luscious and attractive peiros in all the street? Lav kol kiminach de mekaris lepei roisach l'shus rabim. You have no right to put your luscious fruit so close to the street. Umachayvus lo teroy, and then I'm going to have to pay for it. You're going to send me the bill, right? You're machayev my shur. Basically, you're blaming my animal for, right? So therefore, he's potter. Shmuel responds the other way. You know, typically, perhaps a bar, even in your own private territory, which is now being accessed by the public, you're chayev for that. But there's a difference between that and the peiros. The bishlam a bar ikol meimar lava. Because we very well understand why a person's liable for creating this hazard. You know, an animal doesn't necessarily notice the bar there, and since you're opening your rishus for public access, and the animal just is walking there, he's not going to notice the pin and fall in. So you're chayiv ela peiros miikol meimar lava daite. Chazilu. But the peiros, what kind of business does he have eating my peiros? He sees it. You should keep away from it, or at least you should keep your animal away from it. So bottom line is, there's very much reason to differentiate between the bar and the peiros. So perhaps the two discussions are not related. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so we discussed machzeres, which basically means, once again, that the animal standing here, but turning his head into the, sort of into the corner to eat. Is it considered like potter rishus rabim or not? So lema machzeres tanai. Perhaps this very question is machlekes tanai. The sandi, we have a brayso. The animal ate from, within the square. Rishus rabim, totally rishus rabim. Mishalemes mashenenes. All you do is pay what you had benefit. You don't actually pay full payment. Mitzida ruchava from the side. Mishalemes mashizika. You pay actual damages. Who she does that? Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda. However, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Lezer, they disagree. They say, an animal is not meant to, stop and have a meal in the middle of the street. Rather, it's meant to walk. So, what are they arguing about? Rabbi Yossi, Bava Kamma. We assume that all agree. Shein, middle rishus rab, middle ruchava, certainly potter. No machlekes about that. It says a beer b'stei achar. This is a street. This is not b'stei achar. Rather, the machlekes must be revolving around machzeres. Okay, so meaning the machlekes must be revolving around tzidei ruchava, not in the middle of the street, but on the side. And as the Mishnah says, if it veers off to the side, actually walked over to the side of the street, which isn't, the mokum hiluch, so you pay fully. Like the Mishnah. Mishnah says the same thing. Emtze ruchava, you're potter, on the side you're chayiv. So that seems to be Rabbi Yossi's point. Look, the animal is not meant to eat. It's meant to keep on walking. What are you turning to the side and walking over and eating it? So you're chayiv, which is exactly what Tanna Kamma said, right? If you look back at the Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Tanna Kamma, they say the same thing. Mullah street, your potter. From the side, you chayiv. So what's the machlekes? Ela machzeres ikibena. The only way we can come up with a sort of a difference of opinion is to posit that there is some sort of case which is subject to machlekes, which is the case of machzeres. The animal's here in Mullah street, right? But its head, its neck, is sort of leaning into the side of the street, and that's where it's eating. And that's the point of machlekes. Tanna Kamma sover machzeres nam mishal mashenenes. He holds even in that case. Ultimately, where's the animal? Right there, on the street. You potter. Rabbi Yossi sover no mishalemes mashizika, because where's he eating? The eating is taking place over there, so you pay fully. Is that so? Is this the machlekes tanaim? No. The kuli alma machzeres. Perhaps in the case of machzeres, there's no machlekes. We can hold potter, we can hold chayev, you can rab, you can shmo. The machlekes revolves around something else. How to interpret the pasuk? The pasuk in describing the animal damaging by consumption, by shein, uses the term bir b'stei acher. It went elsewhere, it went to the other place. Question is what that means. Mar savar bir b'stei acher v'lo b'shus rab. Tanna Kamma says that b'stei acher means in the sadeh of the nizak, the victim's territory, v'lo b'shus rab, as opposed to the street. You're not chayiv on shein. Umar savar, whereas the other shita says ubir b'stei acher does not exclude the street. V'lo b'shus hamazik, So whether it happened in Rishus HaNizik or in Rishus HaRam, you pay. There's only one place you're exempted, in Rishus HaMazik. In my area, the animal owner's territory, there, even if you put some fruit in my place, my animal ate it, I'm potter. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? Of course I'm potter. Rishus HaMazik, lema, perach, Rishusi, my boy. Of course he has a simple argument. What are you doing storing your bananas in my backyard? Of course I'm potter. There's no pasuk for that. You don't need a pasuk for that. So that can't be the machlekes. Elo the ilfa of Rabbi Yehuda. Remember we had this chiddush a couple of days ago. Ilfa tells us that an animal who sort of stuck his neck into his friend's back, other animals, lowed and ate from it. That's like Rishus HaNizik. You have no business poking your head into the other animals, load. So even though they're both standing in the street, it's called Chatzar HaNizik. Rabbi Yehuda was another case where an animal jumped. It's not regular for an animal to jump up to eat. So if he jumped up, that's something unusual. That's like a Karen. It's not regular, and therefore you chay even in the street. So these two cases are subject to machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer say that in these cases you're chayiv, and you see it in the words. He says ein. Rabbi says ein dark right le'echol elo lahalach. What's an animal meant to be doing in the street? Walk. Not meant to jump up or stick your head into the other guy. So in those cases we say you're chayiv. Tanna Kamma evidently disagrees. After all happened in the street, it's all called Rishus HaRab and you're potter. Continues the Mishnah. Hakelav agdi. You have a dog or a goat. Shekaftu marish hagag v'shibur sakel. It jumped off the roof, which is no surprise for a dog or a goat, and they smashed some kelim. Mishalem nezak shalom. You pay fully. Mishain mu'adin. Because they're liable to that. You should have expected that. You shouldn't have left your animal on the roof expecting it to stay there. Then we have the famous case which we discussed the other day. Hakelav shnot al charara. The animal took the freshly baked whatever it is, cookie or cake, which is still saturated with sort of remnants of coals. So the kelev, the dog, grabbed it, v'halach l'kadish, walked over to this granary or haystack or bundles of grain. Achal hacharara v'likas hagadish. So he enjoyed the charara. That's shane. And then he ignited the gadish. That's like tzreireis because the fire now traveled. We'll see in the Gemara. So what's the liability? Al charara mishalem nezek shalom. Pay 100% for the actual food. That's shane. Al gadish you only pay mishalem chatzi nezek. Why? The Gemara will explain why. Now the first case describes an animal jumped off a roof. You should have expected it. You pay 100%. Tam of the kafts. That's only because they jumped off, which is their regular behavior. But assuming they didn't jump off, they just plopped down. They fell by mistake. They slipped off and landed on something and broke it. Potter, you would be potter. Because you don't have to expect that to happen. Jumping, yeah, but falling, who falls? Alma Kasav, apparently the Mishnah will hold. You have a situation where it was initiated by total negligence. There's an element of negligence covering the case here, right? You had an animal sitting on the roof. It could have jumped off. But that's not what happened. The Sefer Boyin ultimately turns out was an accident. You're not accountable. Lucky you. The concern did not pan out. He didn't jump off. He fell off. So you're potter. Tanam Yahu, we have the same in a brayso. Hakel v'agdi shekafsu merish hagag, right? The same as the Mishnah. V'shibur sakelim mishalem nezek shalom. But naflu, they slipped off and they fell. You didn't have to expect that. That's an accident. Turin. Now, that works according to the Shita that holds that in fact, even if you're acting with carelessness, but ultimately, if you got a lucky break, then it happened by accident, you're potter. According to the Shita, disagrees with that. If you're careless, you're fully responsible, irrespective of the exact consequence, exact happenings. Even if it turns out that it's an oinus, you're not lucky, you're chayev, because you should not have allowed this to happen to begin with. So according to that, Michael, how do we understand the Mishnah? Which seems to indicate that if it, instead of jumping and damaging, it fell, it slipped, you're potter. So it must be speaking that, when the animal would have jumped, it would have landed, 10 feet away and damaged the kalim there. and we're speaking that the kalim could go into mekarvi kalim gabe kaisel. The kalim on bottom was sitting right next to the wall. In which case the jumping trajectory would have missed those kalim. So he was never careless with respect to those kalim. He wouldn't have expected them to hit the kalim, even if they would have jumped. The chikavtzi bekfitza, if they would have really jumped the way he expected them to do, they would have landed on the kalim. So therefore, he's totally not responsible. I never expected them to slip on the kalim and slip right next to the wall and bang the kalim. They were meant to jump, not slip. Therefore, there's no element of pshia at all. He didn't have to expect them to fall, and that's why he's potter. Amar Zid Mishvei the Rav. Here comes a chiddush. We're going with this running assumption that if they fall, he's potter. We have to explain it why. But let's say, here's a case that even if they fall, they slip and fall right next to the wall, he's still chayiv. Mishkachasla because the ruah. So even if you hold that chilasa b'shia b'seiva b'oines is potter, but in some cases you're chayiv. A shaky wall. You know it was a shaky wall. So 1 second. Mind you, so what's the concern? Shaky wall, so what? Because he should have thought twice, realizing that perhaps bricks are going to fall off and smash the kelim. But 1 second, did that happen? No. I understand he was negligent, he was careless, so he was chilasa b'pshia. But ultimately what happens? Ultimately l'nafli archi. Did the bricks fall down? No. V'nafli in who? The animal fell down. The goat, the dog. So that's chilasa b'pshia. Who? Why are you saying that he's chayiv? We're speaking about a narrow wall, meaning there's a rooftop with a narrow railing. So you knew good and well that by leaving your animal up there, he's going to jump up on the railing the way animals do. He's going to slip off that railing. It's not going to hold him. It's not going to support him. It's so narrow. And that's what happened. The animal fell right down and smashed the kelim. So there's an element of pshia in terms of the advanced planning and also in terms of what actually happened. Right? So there was a pshia in terms of the fact that you left your animal up there. And even if he fell off the makeh, this railing, you're still chayiv because you should have known that he likes to jump. He's going to jump up there and slide right off, and therefore you're totally chayiv. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a brayso, kela vagdi. So apparently the Gemara is changing the case. We're not speaking about a shaky wall anymore. We're speaking about a narrow wall, in which case it's chilasi b'pshia v'seife b'pshia. Tana Rabbanan, here comes a brayso. Akela vagdi shadolgu mimata lamala. P'tur. A dog, a goat, they typically jump downward, not upwards. So if they jumped upwards and were mazik, you're potter. You're potter from full damages. You pay chatzi nezek. It's unusual. It's keren. But lamala lamata chayav. They jumped from on top to on bottom. Then you're fully chayiv. It's expected behavior. Odam, v'tarnagel, what about a person? You're totally responsible. There's no exemptions by a person, right? Whether he jumped up or down. V'tarnagel, likewise, a chicken, she jumps around all the time. Shadilgu, bein l'mala l'mata, bein l'mata l'mala, whether up, whether down, chayav, fully chayav. Atani, we have a brayso. Hakal v'agdi, shadilgu, bein l'mala l'mata, bein l'mata l'mala. Paturim, but the brayso says here that whether they went up or down, you're potter. And here we say that going down is chayiv. And says the Gemara, Tirgemara Papa explained the brayso, the afich meifach. We're speaking that the Kelev and the Gdi behaved in an unusual manner in the way they jumped around. You see, typically, a goat, hops, he jumps. He doesn't sort of drag himself up and down a wall. A dog does do that. He sort of grips the wall up and down as he's climbing. He doesn't make a major jump. And here they did it the other way around. Kalba, the dog, jump biskira. Rashi says v'kfitza, a real major jump, which is unusual. V'gadya, the goat, on the other hand, b'sricha. He sort of, gripped uses nails to gain foothold and grip on the structure that he was jumping around on. So it's something unusual, and therefore you putter. Asks the more, why totally putter? I understand it's unusual, it's mishuna, it's karen. The answer is putter min shal. We don't mean totally putter. It means it's not your regular behavior. It's rather something unusual, like karen. You only pay chatzi nezek. Okay, so in summation, we learned about zenen of zelechasser is putter. We had several reasons, aside from the obvious that he's not really losing. Actually, he's gaining, chasing away the mazikim, making it habitable, and looking after his property. We had a discussion regarding what constitutes chatzar nizik, what's Rosh Hashanah, Rashal b'machzeres. We had a discussion regarding Kelev and Akdi who jumped around, Chayev by Kfitza, by Nefila your potter. We had several explanations. We discussed how the animals usually jump, what's considered unusual with respect to Nezek Shalem or Chatzi Nezek. All the best to you and Hatzlacha.